This week we're talking all about automatic writing and spirit boxes, to name a few things that you can be using to try and connect to spirit. And we're also looking at developing as a medium and the importance that confidence plays, and talking about a few ways that you can actually boost your confidence on your own journey as well. Welcome to this week's episode of The Happy Psychic, and this week I am joined by Cael O'Donnell, who is Australia's top psychic medium. However, I would say regardless of where you are in the world, you will have heard of him. He's in Australia, but he's really known all over, and I would expect fully that you have seen him on TikTok. And he's also author of the book 3 Minutes with Spirit. You also teach as well, Cael, I believe, but it is so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yes, Gemma, thank you so much for having me here. And hello, everyone listening.
Yay. It is so good to have you. I am so excited about this. So I have so many questions. Obviously, you are a psychic medium, similar to me. We are all different and unique in our own way. But I first of all was really eager to find out a little bit more about how you actually ended up on that path in the first place.
Yeah, it's such an interesting journey for me, because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, psychics and mediums weren't really known by my family. They weren't really known by my parents. They weren't something that we would seek out, and I didn't really know what a psychic was when I was growing up. But I knew that around 16 years old, I started to find out that I would know information. Like I would know when my sister was going to fall pregnant and that she was going to have a baby girl. And just a lot of things in my life I just started to know before they happened. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do with that information. Of course, going out of school, it was time to go to college now, and you have to get a professional education and a career. And so it kind of was all left in the background. And I pursued becoming a therapist. And then during COVID, that's really where I started to get bored at home, get really interested in TikToks about spirituality and psychics. And then it kind of stirred my own curiosity to want to try it out myself.
Yeah, I love that story. And it actually really resonates with me as well in terms of the journey that I had. But whenever you were looking back to when you were like sort of 16, 17 years old, did you realize at that time you were different? Because I can really resonate with knowing information and not knowing where it came from. But for me personally, I hadn't realized that I was different to anybody else at that point.
Yeah, I didn't think that I was different. I didn't think that it was really too weird or crazy. I just thought, oh, this is kind of cool. But it was never something that I put up my full attention to.
Mm-hmm. No, it's just amazing. So obviously you do the psychic mediumship. I have seen a couple of snippets of you working with people and bringing lovely messages through from their loved ones. Obviously your book really helps people along their journey as well and helps them connect in with spirit. You also use this tool called the Spirit Box. And I'm really intrigued about that because it's something that I don't really know a lot about. But I guess it could be classed as like a divination tool. Would that be, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's definitely a modern divination tool. And I didn't really know much about it before January of this year myself. This is 2023, by the way, for the listener. And so for me, I was seeing it on TikTok, people using the Spirit Box, and they would go into cemeteries, and I saw that they had a lot of interesting conversations and they seemed very compelling. And so I thought, well, and I'm always the one that goes into the dark. I'm always the one that goes towards the fire. So all growing up, I've always been the curious one that's like, if they're going to do it, I'm going to try it out. So, and off topic, that's how I was when I was growing up. I would break in with my friends to the old abandoned hospitals, and we would, try to stir up and see if there was any spirits in there. And so for me, it was so natural for me to get this Spirit Box and just try it out. And I was trying it out at home, and I would record it and slow it down. And I was so surprised to actually hear loved ones that have crossed over in my life come through on it. And I mean, when you do it on yourself and you actually channel somebody that you really did know, you'll hear their actual voice. It's very interesting. I actually heard the sound of my mum's voice pull out my name. and I heard my friend's best friend who crossed over say words that he would only say.
Mm-hmm.
And so the spirit box really is something that you can use to connect in with the loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And it works by having FM and AM frequencies that are in your local radio station around you. And it will basically produce these words one at a time through the spirit box, and it scans it at a really fast pace.
Yeah.
So it's scanning all the radio stations, and the language comes through, and you ask a question, and a spirit uses the frequencies to allow the right words. So if you're asking him a question, are you with me? And it says yes, then you are obviously contacting a loved one or a spirit that you want to speak to.
Yeah. If you'd have asked me and told me about this sort of thing 10 years ago, I would have just completely dismissed it. No, that's hoo-ha, it's rubbish. But
that would be me too. I would be that way too.
I think now I've been on my journey and I've seen the power of what they can do and what they're capable of. I'm just like, anything is possible. It wouldn't even surprise me if they started pressing the buttons themselves to make it all work. I firmly believe that they're capable of everything and anything. Now, there's a couple of videos. It was one of your videos actually on TikTok that I had seen where you were talking to someone. You were at a grave site and you were talking to somebody and asking them if they were an earthbound spirit. And I was really intrigued to understand that a little bit because I guess, what is the difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I define it, an earthbound spirit as a spirit who's more present here in this dimension. They like to, be alongside you, be in your house. If you've ever heard of loved ones living in your house, or having things move or lights flicker, they're usually earthbound spirits that want to be close to humans, and they lived, with you. So for example, I had a client who said that she was smoking cigarettes, and she even continued to smoke cigarettes after her father passed away of lung cancer. And she would leave her cigarettes on the coffee table, and late at night she would wake up, in the morning she would wake up and the cigarettes wouldn't be on the coffee table. She would find them in the cutlery drawer. And she always wondered, why were they always moved in the middle of the night? And then when she had this reading with me, I was able to pick up and say, he's talking to me about him moving your cigarettes all the time. And she says, wow, nobody would even know that because that is such a weird experience. But she says, I do find my cigarettes in the cutlery drawer, and he's telling you that you need to quit cigarettes and you need to reclaim your health again and not go down his path. And so she decided she was going to quit smoking at that point. So that's an earthbound spirit, a spirit that wants to live alongside you, experience your day by day, lives life through your eyes. And the difference between that and another spirit is spirits that want to live their life over there, and they're not really as contactable. They don't really spend time visiting you. They prefer to be over there in the spirit world and set up their life, and they know you're going to be okay. So they start their life over there and aren't living necessarily in this immediate dimension with us.
Okay, because that really makes sense, because I think over the years, we're always learning, I think, and expanding our consciousness and expanding the knowledge that we have. And part of me, I've definitely heard over the years people mention about spirits that aren't able to cross over. And actually, there's a few occasions when I've had this question myself from someone who is saying, oh, can you confirm that my grandpa or my mum or my dad has been able to cross over? Have they crossed over? I just can't bear the thought of them like being stuck here. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. It's certainly not something that I have experienced. And I did wonder, with an earthbound spirit, are they here because they want to be, or is it because they haven't wanted to cross over, or do they flip between the two? Or
I personally believe they can flick between the two. I believe that when you're crossed over, you are crossed over. And it's final that you go over there. But I think that spirit there's multiple, we're in different dimensions, so we're in the fourth dimension here. And so, the third dimension. So there are different dimensions, and they will go between the two. So your loved ones will typically be in the fourth dimension when they cross over. That's where they're going to be immediately with the spirit guides and the loved ones that are over there. But I believe that there are some spirits that like to come back and they like to spend their time with us. So they're not necessarily not going crossed over. They're not necessarily, I'll go towards the light, have they crossed over? They are okay. It's just that personally, especially for some introverted spirits, when you cross over, there's a multitude of new souls over there you've never met before, and so people sometimes just like to spend their time with their loved ones here because they know you. Because when you cross over, there's new faces, and it's like going to an airport, and there's so many different faces, and there's so many different processes, and it can get overwhelming, and you just want to have a reprieve at the lounge. So that's basically what being here in this world is for them. They like to just come over here, and when they get comfortable to kind of go out and go into the airport and actually meet some new people and go to the bar, like that's what it's like to be in the spirit world. So just take it as a good thing. If you're getting signs like the lights are flickering or you're getting spirits like that in your house, they feel comfortable with you, and they're going back and forth.
That's brilliant. So if anybody was eager to get into this, working with the spirit box and using that as a tool, how would they get started? Can you give any advice?
Yeah, so I think that when you get started with the spirit box, I think no matter what divination tool you use, whether that's oracle cards or a pendulum or anything like that, it's always important to set an intention as to why are you using it? What is your purpose of using it? What spirit do you really want to contact? I think having a really good intention first is really good. And then I would basically, with the spirit box, for example, you would set your intention of who you want to contact, turn it on, start scanning, and then have a conversation. They always say to start with frequency such as AM. I use AM frequency, and have it on a slow scan so you can really hear for the words. Then you want to go ahead and record it, because you're going to put it on your computer and slow it down in like a free software like Audacity or something, and then like listen to it slowly so you can hear some of the responses, because spirit will sometimes say yes, but you didn't pick it up. When you slow it down and you listen to your answers or your questions and their answers, all of a sudden you are like, oh my God, it's amazing.
Okay, so that's really good. Did you start with the spirit box before you really started to develop your mediumship, or when did you introduce that?
No, I only discovered the spirit box this year. I didn't even know what it was. I heard about it from the grapevine. Some psychics that are friends with me, they heard, oh, have you heard of a spirit box? And I just dismissed it because I was busy. I couldn't care less what it was. I just, have my clients to see, and I'm not really thinking about divination tools. I don't really use divination tools anymore, but I think that I was just curious about it. And the reason why I was because I'm trying to bring spirituality to the younger generations as well, and particularly mediumship. So I think the spirit box was really just an olive branch to the young people on TikTok to realize that you can contact spirits and it's not scary. That's the number one comments I get was, they're so friendly, they're so vibey. And it's like, yeah, they really are. You don't need to be afraid. And so, the spirit box is just more, if I can be honest, it might be more of an entertainment thing to entertain them, to show them that you can connect in with spirit. But for me, am I using it personally every day? No. Am I using it in appointments? No. It's more of something I think for audiences to watch and be amused by it and curious and have a conversation. Do you believe in it? Do you think it's really working? Or do you think it's just all in your head?
No, that makes sense really, because I was actually quite curious to understand how that ties in with your mediumship as well, because obviously you're able to connect with spirit without using any of these tools. So whenever you're using the spirit box, do you find, and apologies because I don't know exactly how you receive information, but do you find that you're hearing something on the spirit box, but then you're sensing an energy, or you're seeing a person, or how does that typically work for you?
Yeah, so for me, I believe, and I teach psychics and mediums, that we all go on a range of different clairs. So, the old thought is you have one clair and you have to develop it, but I believe we go in between all of them. So some days you're more clairvoyant, some days you're more claircognizant. And so for me, I'm heavily more claircognizant and clairvoyant for me. So I see spirit kind of just in the back of my mind. And I can sense and know that there's a spirit there. So for me, while I'm using the spirit box, I am definitely sensing, a spirit that is there, and one that's coming to, move towards the spirit box wanting to speak. So it's good when I'm with my camera crew and we're in the cemetery and I'm kind of pointing, let's go over there because there's a lovely lady over there. I can definitely sense her spirit. She's like all the way over there. It's going to be like a 3-minute walk. So we go over there and we have a great conversation. So it's good using the mediumship side to just navigate who's going to be next on the box.
Yeah, no, that's really good. So with that as a tool, do you think that it is something that could really help people develop their mediumship, or is it more to help confirm to them that there is something that exists and that this is all real in a way?
It could be. I never thought about that, but maybe that is something that people could use to develop their mediumship. They could definitely use it to confirm that you are talking to somebody. Maybe just sense first and sense what you can get and then just clarify it with the spirit box in that way. But yeah, I think that anything that you can use as like training wheels as a spirit communicator is always great.
I always find that, I don't know what your views are, but I really do think that we're all gifted in some shape or form. And it's how open we are to exploring that really dictates the level of information that we get through. So I often think using things like, well, obviously the spirit box is one. I have, I was very, very into cards. So cards were my thing. That's how I started. But I think whenever we're able to start using a tool and it starts to give us the confidence that it's all real and there is something there, it can almost give us that little bit of a push forward. I'm not sure how your journey with learning using the spirit box, maybe it would be one of the tools in your toolkit rather than something that you would use exclusively, but it's definitely one of those that I don't know, I'm dead curious about it. It's really, really fascinated me since I came across your content, so maybe it's something that I'll try, because I guess like you, I don't necessarily need it to use within my work or anything, but it could be quite a fun thing to test out. It's, I guess like learning the saxophone, or, you might not do it as a career. You might not do it like all the time, but actually to pick it up and do a little bit with it would be quite fun at times. Yeah.
I think it is. And I get surprised myself at times with using the spirit box, especially when I'm contacting my own loved ones, and you will hear their own voice and the way they talk, so I can feel as though it is definitely a strong validation thing. And it's, because sometimes as a medium, you can doubt, your own connections, not necessarily connections with the client, but your own personal, is that really my mum talking to me in my mind? So I even have those days as a medium of like, when I'm wanting to connect with my own loved ones. So I see mediums myself because I believe, the hairdresser doesn't cut their own hair. So I like to go and see mediums and have them do the work on me too. But having that spirit box is definitely the strong validation that, oh my God, mum's talking to me. She's replying. And yes, it's going to be like, kind of pidgin English. It's going to be very choppy, but at least it's something, and that's what I like about it.
But also actually receiving information from spirit can be a bit like that anyway. Like even when you are a medium, you're sort of receiving little bits. So sometimes you are trying to interpret, like I get a lot of clairvoyance, but I'm really clairaudient as well. So I might get a word and then a hand gesture or some sort of symbol, and the two join together to form the message. So
that's good.
So it's weird, like we all work so differently, but it's not like having a conversation with somebody across the table, even as clear as some people's connections can be. We're still communicating with a different realm. And whenever we're working with spirit, I don't know if you find this, but I sometimes find them very ambiguous. So, and I find sometimes they do it deliberately to like test us as mediums as well, but they'll give us a message or give us information, and we'll sort of interpret it one way when they've maybe meant for it to be like another way. But it's communication.
Yeah, it's not easy being a medium because there's a lot of people, might think that it looks easy, but that's with a lot of practice and a lot of readings that we've done, but you've got a lot of different new sign, a new ambiguous symbol. How am I going to interpret that? And it's really just like, I'm just going to go on a whim and say this and say this, and you get better at with going on the background of an ambiguous symbol. That's just coming with practice. But just for people out there, it's definitely exactly what Gemma is saying. It's not just sitting there talking to a spirit as if it's someone sitting in front of you like we are. It's definitely choppy, changey, and depends on the
Yeah.
spirit too as
Yeah,
well.
that's very, very true. Yeah, because sometimes, so I have a spirit guide that I work with on an ongoing basis, and she tends, because my messages and my readings tend to be more important than the person that is delivering them. So my connection with her is very, very clear. So it makes it easy for her to communicate. But whenever I have somebody's loved one coming in, sometimes it's just as clear as what I have with that lady. And then other times it's not, and they, communicate in a different way. And, every spirit definitely communicates differently, or they use different terminology, or they'll use different symbolism. And I find that even fascinating as well, about the communication, how it can always change.
Yeah, definitely. The way I speak to spirit and the way that I channel my information is through automatic writing. So I'll spend 4 minutes at the beginning of a session, and how you were saying how a spirit is different. They have different handwriting. So, one spirit will have a really beautiful font, and then the next spirit has like this chicken scratching with arrows and circles, and and I'm trying to understand. So if I was to get a book of all the readings I've had, you'll see all this different font, the way that they talk and the way they use my hand to write what they want said. It's really interesting. That's basically the difference of the spirits, I guess.
So automatic writing, that's another fascinating thing, because I can remember a few years ago, I did try it. I attempted it. It didn't really work. And I thought to myself, am I doing automatic writing, or is it just me trying to pretend that I'm doing automatic writing? Sometimes I'll sit and I'll write a lot of things down just whenever I'm having some time with spirit by myself, and I'll sit and I'll just type it out. I have my notes in my iPhone is probably about to burst, to be honest, because I have everything dated and I put it all in, and then it means that I can search it. So rather than handwriting it, I'm sitting typing it on my phone all the time. So it's really interesting to look back over the information, and I love whenever I do that, because it can definitely help me get into the zone and receive information through. So whether I'm doing that for myself, or spirit are giving me a message that they want me to deliver to someone, or on TikTok or something like that at a later date, it means that I can sit and I can write it down, and I can absorb it, and I can ask additional questions. But with my understanding is with the automatic writing that it's almost like you're not in charge of your hand. But hopefully you can help us understand that a little bit better, because this is another thing that we haven't actually covered on the podcast before. So I'm excited to hear about this.
Yeah, so ever since I started, I've always used automatic writing. So it's interesting because it's just an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing that I do. So sometimes just slowing down and just thinking about my process like we are on this podcast, it just helps me be able to help the public to understand how we work. So, for me, you might have heard of the medium Tyler Henry. He does automatic drawing. So he's drawing the messages, but for me, I'm writing them down as they come along. So I would say that at times you feel as though it's not that you feel your hand move or something touch your hand. It's just that this flow of information that comes through from spirit, you just feel impulse to write. And this is in front of a client. I know it's so much easier in front of a client because you can validate it on the spot. But when you're by yourself and you're trying to get messages from spirit and what's going on, when you're just by yourself, it can be a lot more hard, more challenging. So I definitely encourage doing automatic writing on a friend and doing it in front of them, and try to pick an area of their life that you're not really that much familiar with. So it could be their love life or career life or something, and then try the automatic writing rather than just do it by yourself. Having somebody else there, it can help you validate it better. And so that's really where I would say that I get my information from, is really that clear cognizance meets that automatic writing. And just sometimes they'll have 2 pages of information, and it will take 5 minutes. And I'll tell the client, I said, I'm ready to go now. Sorry for the 5-minute wait, but they're really onto something. And then other times, especially the older gentlemen spirits, they don't say a lot. They'll do dot points.
Okay.
So they want to just do dot points with facts. So the men can be quite factual spirits. The women are more memories and remember this and remember when we did this. The men are more, I died of this. This is what happened. This is my daughter. She has a son. So it can be very dot pointy. But with the women spirits, it's flowers and this is what's coming up in their life. So it's interesting to see, how a spirit will use automatic writing for themselves.
Yeah,
sometimes they don't use it. Sometimes they will just use the first sentence. I won't get anything more. And I'll just say, okay, well, I'm just going to rely on you going to tell me directly, because they don't want to use automatic writing.
That's, I just find it incredibly interesting, because it's, for me, trying to get my head around the fact that, okay, so the information is coming through to you, but you're almost like you're fully aware of that. It's not like you're in a trance per se. It's just that it's coming through, but you just feel impulsed to write it down.
Yeah, for me, it's just like my mind just fills with information that I shouldn't know. That's been the case since I was 16 years old. I just, in front of somebody, when I'm doing a reading, I just am filled, my whole brain, my whole mind fills with information. So that's the claircognizance stuff that I really lean into more. And then I have to write it down, because I'll forget. And I always make a joke with my client. I says, I'm a guy, I can't multitask, so I got to write everything down before we do the reading today. So that's the purpose, I guess, of the automatic writing. Is some of it's automatic, I guess, but others of it is I have to just write it all down, or I'm going to forget throughout the reading, because it's specific information that's really important to validate the spirit, but also information throughout the reading. And then I guess maybe 40 minutes into the reading, 20 minutes into the reading, I won't need to look at the notes anymore. We've gotten a little bit, we've got a bit of a motion happening, and it's moving along well. But just the first basic things, I always ask spirit, can you be specific? I want to know, how did you die? Where did you die? And all of the information that I need to know first, so that I can validate the spirit and connect with the client and say, is this the spirit you're looking for? Is this the person that you've come here for today? So yeah, that's why I love the writing things down first, and that helps me have a little bit more procedure. I'm an analytical person, so people might not believe that I might be more spiritual, but I'm actually very formulaic, and I like a process. So I tell the spirits, please give me a bit more of a process as I go along today.
It's funny that you said about you not able to multitask, because I cannot multitask, and everybody thinks all women should be able to, but I'm hopeless at it. I'm definitely thinking maybe I was supposed to be a man in this life or something, because it's not something that I can do.
Yeah. Well, that makes me feel better.
You've really got me thinking now about what I actually do with the typing and how I type stuff up, because I also offer written email readings. So for people who are wanting spiritual guidance, or want the answer to some questions, or maybe want to get a message from mum, for example, and I do it for shorter ones. I don't think that I could do it really for a 30-minute, 45-minute, hour-long reading. But if somebody has just one question, or maybe like books a 15-minute slot, and they're like, okay, I have a few questions, I do that over email for them. So it's just booked into my calendar it would be a normal reading. And the information, it just flows. Like whenever, sometimes even before I've read their question, I've literally, copied and pasted their email into the email page, and I'm about to start, going through their questions, and Spirit are already giving me the information and response. So I'm wondering now, is that a form maybe of automatic writing that I hadn't really considered was?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people might have over dramatized it with Hollywood or something, and you think that, some cloud hovers above your pen, and, it's going to be like your hand's like fully moving. But automatic writing is just like you're writing it down. It's just a flow of words, flow of typing. I guess it's, whatever way that you're going to get that information down. And it's just automatic, because you don't need to pause and think about it. It's just there at the top of your mind, and you just write it down because that's the next thing to write down.
It's actually really amazing just having this conversation, because I do talk a lot about how all psychic mediums work differently. Because I do sometimes have people coming to me, and I don't know whether you experience this as well, but I might get somebody coming to me who is perhaps in the older generation, who is very much of you don't feed the medium, you sit there, the only words that you say are yes and no, and that's it. And that's really not how I work. And I'm very much about changing the face of mediumship. You talked about bringing mediumship to the younger generation, which I think is amazing, because I think there's so much passion that we can really generate here and spark an interest in people who are in the younger years. Not that we're old, we're far from old. We're still young, but just a bit younger than us. just a bit younger. But I just think that it's so important that people really find their own way. And I guess I may be making an assumption here, but you talked about obviously COVID being a really big turning point for you. Does that mean that you have developed almost on your own without the input of the predecessors, I guess, who have this tried and tested, well, this is how we've always done it. This is how we do mediumship. Did you?
Yeah, I might just be a black sheep in the mediumship family, because for me, I'm not really familiar with, and I'm curious to know more, but I'm not really familiar with, they talk about schools of mediumship, and I didn't know that there were schools of mediumship. There's the Tony Stockwells or the this or the that, and I just thought we all just get the job done, and however you do it, you do it. And so for me, I never had development. I never had formal professional development. How I developed and I trained my psychics and mediums is self-belief is the core thing that you need as a medium. And so how I developed was I would listen to my sessions with clients that I would have at, it was back when I would do it for $50 for 30 minutes. And I would watch it over the full 30 minutes and see at the moment where I fumbled or it wasn't correct or it didn't land, then I would go, what were you getting in that moment? And I would just watch myself over and over again. And I would just train and teach myself over and over again, watching. And I got sick of seeing myself. But this is how I was able to develop my ability and make it sharp and accurate, was I would just know when I was seeing myself, just before that, you were getting this, you were getting the father's name, or you were getting this and that, the rest of it, but you didn't say it because you were scared. So I would just watch myself over and over again, and that's how I developed. So I can't really tell anybody that they're my mentor, or they're the person that I want to emulate, or they train me. I train myself. And so I encourage psychics and mediums, and I might be a little bit controversial in saying this, but I think that 20% of your time should be at development circles and trying to get someone to help you. The rest of the time is getting out there and just going into the trenches and practice, and just getting your vibe. Because so many people try to fill your mind with, is spirit on the left or spirit on the right? But at the end of the day, a client doesn't care. They just want you to get it right. So that's what I teach.
No, I am actually completely in agreement with you. Maybe not the exact percentage split, just because I don't have an opinion on that right now. But I don't have an opinion either, and I don't care. I mean, I just think get the spirit there, do your job, and everyone's happy. There's definitely been people on my journey. So there is a lady actually that I know, and she has been developing, I think, for about 9 or 10 years, but she's still not working as a medium. She's still not out there charging for readings, and she has worked with and been mentored by a number of different key mediums, and she's such a lovely person, and she's good, and she has the potential to be great, but she doesn't have that confidence. And for me, that confidence will only come from being out there and doing it. You have to push past the discomfort and that fear of getting it wrong, or giving the wrong information, or freezing in front of a client, or whatever. You need to find a way to get yourself off the ground, really, and start practicing, because that's the way that your confidence will come. It's not going to come from working with Tony Stockwell. It's not going to come, by working with either of us, really. It might help you along a little bit, but you need to be doing the work in some shape or form, even if it's doing a free reading for friends and family, or asking, friends and family to refer people on to you for a short reading or a message, even if you're doing it over email or message initially, sending people WhatsApps. Well, I've got this, I've got that, if you're not comfortable doing it face to face. But it's about finding your own way, I think. And
finding your own way. That's so true. Self-belief. And that might be the new voice of mediumship, because, and I was told by somebody who I got development with for maybe 2 months or something at the very beginning, because everybody was getting development and everybody was telling me, you need to get development because this is going to just make your reading so much better. And so I went to the development, and I remember I had a desire for platform mediumship, and I wanted to deliver audience readings to people. and go on tour, because that was just something that was in my heart. And I remember this person put a big hurdle in my way and said, "Oh, that's 8 years away. You have to study as a medium to do this, for 8 years before you can get the confidence to get in front of an audience of 150 people." And I did it in 10 months. And within 10 months of her saying that, I was in a room of 150 people. And I was, working the room and getting readings done, doing mediumship. So I still respect them today. I just say, I think that teacher put that there because they probably wanted me to push the boundaries and, try to prove them wrong, right? So I just encourage all the listeners who are baby mediums or psychics or trying to get out there. Maybe you're intermediate and you still haven't had many clients. I think go out and do what Gemma says. Get practice, put yourself out there, do it for free, get some practice and rapport with people, and record yourself and listen to yourself and listen to when you get it wrong. Because when you see yourself, when you get it wrong, when it flops, you'll be able to know how to correct it for the next time. You'll remember what was the sign, what was the symbol that you saw. And you do that over and over and over again, and you can develop really fast. So I just think that whole mindset of, you got to train for years and things like this, I just think that it's unnecessary. And, I just feel like there's so many souls out there. We're putting the cart before the horse. There's so many souls out there that want readings, and, we're slowing things down. We're trying to make it seem that it's something that it's not. You can get out there, be a medium. And everybody's different. Some people will take 10 years to develop, but other people will be out there doing it in 6 months. Everybody is different. And I think it's always about trying to not conform to a certain perception, but try and be your own person and do mediumship your way. I think that's a really big thing. Absolutely.
Because whenever I have people sitting in front of me who are just like there, and all they're saying is yes or no, and they want me to bring, all of this information through, it just feels really alien for me, because it's not how I work, and I'm not a robot either, but I want to help people and I want to bring information through, but I do want people to be open to a different way of working, and the fact that, things do happen very, very differently for every different medium. Everybody works differently. We all receive information differently. I think we've definitely established that here between how we work. And I've even found as well that different mediums bring different information through. You said that you yourself go to mediums yourself for readings. And I do. Now, it did take me a little while, because at the start I thought, well, no, because I can get the information for myself, so I'm just going to rely on myself. But I have definitely found that there are times when another medium would get information that I am not privy to. And I don't know why that is, but I welcome that now, whereas perhaps at the start of my journey I wasn't as open to that. It's just, who knows why? Who knows why? It's maybe one of the things that we're not supposed to know. Yeah. And I think it's the message too, because, the information's good. I think the information gets to the validation of the spirit, but then we need to hear the message. There's a particular message that the spirit wants to deliver in that particular reading. And so that's why I see mediums, because I just want to hear a message from my mum. And it's a unique message each time, delivered in her own way. And I just think that it's great, because it's something that I can try, just see different mediums. The other day, I had the blessing of having a mediumship reading with somebody, and it was so sweet. And I wouldn't describe myself as a sweet medium. My readings aren't necessarily sweet. Sometimes they're very much straight down the line. And so I like that there's different forms of mediums and their style, because you want to go sometimes to this medium who you bring it through your mom, and she's a sweet medium. But then sometimes you want your grandfather to come through and kind of really move you on in your life when you're getting in a rut. And there's this kind of direct kind of mediumship kind of style, which is more my style. So that's why I see other mediums, because it's just in different forms and styles that the messages come through. So here's a question for you then. Now that you've talked about, the sweet medium and you not being the sweet medium necessarily, do you find that spirit would use you to deliver difficult messages? Or, can you... Yeah. I think that for me, the kind of clients that I attract into my business, they're clients that sometimes have
complex passings. So closure messages are really more of a thing that I do in my readings. It's not necessarily the grandma that comes through that wants to see how the grandkids are going. It really is sometimes the tragic passings that really need a directive, investigative kind of mediumship for me to validate stuff such as documentation or how did the person pass? A lot of COVID deaths were ruled as COVID when it was a heart attack or something. And for me to bring through information, sometimes I do difficult readings where I'm directing some messages to the person so they can hear the closure messages, hear the reality, what really did happen. And so I think those are the kinds of messages that some people look for. A longer reading, so my readings are 60 minutes. So we really get to the story of the meat and potatoes of what happened, and that's where they have the relief of closure, because they don't just want to know that the loved one's there. They want to know, what does the loved one believe about that situation? Are they happy with the house and the estate situation that we're going through right now? And so we get instant messages from the spirit to validate what everyone's doing. So I can kind of be the mediumship lawyer or the mediumship kind of, I'm the mediator medium.
That's good though, because some people in mediumship wouldn't be comfortable delivering those sorts of messages. And I always say to people that spirit will push you, especially if you're developing, they will really push you because they want to see what your limit is. They want to know what can they use you for? What sort of like clients are you going to attract? Because they will impact on that as well and direct the right people towards you. But they will really push you to your limit to sort of feel, okay, well, how much can we push you? What will you deliver? Where do you draw the line?
Yes.
And there's so many people that are, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but definitely people that are a bit softer and a bit, frilly around the edges, who maybe don't want to give the uncomfortable information and who pick and choose perhaps what spirit give them. And it's always been my philosophy that I don't know the person that I'm reading for enough to decide who gets to hear that message and who doesn't. So I really work on the basis that if spirit are telling me something, then it needs to be delivered. Even if it's quite an uncomfortable message and I'm thinking, no, I really can't deliver that. I just always work on the basis that spirit know best, really.
Yeah. And I think that it's all in the language. It's not what you're saying all the time. It's how you say it, how you're going to deliver the message. Because spirit wants you as a medium to get the message delivered in the, not necessarily you have to be the most accurate psychic and have the most amazing validations. It's how do you deliver the core message? And when you can deliver the core message with grace and poise, that's, how they're going to appreciate that. Because of course I'm going to be delivering hard messages to people, but I have a way of doing it that lands well, and the person doesn't leave feeling scared or worried. They feel like something's resolved and we came to a resolution. I never leave them open and emotional. We always tie it off at the end, and you feel like that it was a very productive session.
No, that's brilliant. Well, honestly, Cael, it has been amazing having you on the show today. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I could sit quite happily for another hour just sitting.
That's me too. Because I'm thinking, it's great to talk about mediumship with someone else.
I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, I don't know if the listeners would appreciate like another hour and a half of us sitting talking. But it's been absolutely amazing, and I've been really enjoying your TikToks and just you in general. I do love your personality and how you come across, and that's even been cemented more just from this conversation. And I don't know, I guess I'm so excited to see how you touch other people on their development journey as well, and how you can really excite people who are interested to explore mediumship, because I think that you come across, certainly to me today, and I firmly believe that you're probably an excellent mentor or role model for people that are in that space. So I'm so excited that you're very welcome.
Thanks, Gemma. I appreciate that, because it's a little daunting, because I don't want to bend any of our beautiful mediums. I don't want to change them. I want them to be themselves, but I want them to go out there and get their clients.
Exactly.
I want them to get
and I
confident.
think that's what it's all about. It's not necessarily making people conform to, well, this is how it's done. This is how we do it. This is how real mediumship is done. It's not about that. It's about, okay, well, this is my path. This is how I did it. I can teach you how to do that, but ultimately you'll need to figure out your own way. And giving people inspiration, I think, is probably probably the best thing.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. If I can inspire them to do more practice, then I've achieved what I need to do as a mentor, really.
So how can people find you online, and how can they get booked in with you? Because I imagine that you have a very long waiting list.
Mm-hmm. Well, they can definitely come and skip that waiting list. It is a long waiting list, but you can definitely come to an online group reading. So I do group readings. You can go to my website, caelodonnell.com, and you can sign up to my monthly group readings, and you can see me give readings to people live on Zoom. That's one way. And check out my Instagram and my TikTok at I'm Cael O'Donnell, and see what I've got going on there.
Thank you so much for being on today, and I am hopeful that our paths will cross again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gemma, and thank you, listeners, for being here today.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you're able to, please rate the show or leave feedback on your chosen podcast player. You can also visit the podcast website. Simply head across to thehappypsychic.show, and you can also find me on the socials by searching for @Gemma Lonsdale Guru.